Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. I'm Abram Kielsmeyer-Jones, and this webinar is called Bible and Theology Dictionaries in Accordance. We're going to spend the hour together looking at dictionaries in accordance, Bible dictionaries and theology dictionaries in particular. We're going to spend the large majority of the time seeing how dictionaries function in accordance so that you can get the most out of the ones that you already have and any future ones we might add to our library. Toward the end, we'll spend a little bit of time with a survey of a few of the different dictionary modules available in accordance. This handout that's showing on my screen is available to you in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar control panel. So you'll just want to go to that panel and see where it says handouts. Make sure that the triangle next to handouts is clicked so that it's pointing down, and that will reveal a PDF, which is what you're seeing on my screen here. If you are watching this on a recording later, because we are recording today, you can email me at abramkj@accordancebible.com, and I'd be happy to send the handout to you. In addition, if you are here, that means you're registered if you're here live, and so you will get automatically an email with a link to the handout again, as well as the recorded version of this webinar. So you can go back and watch and rewatch, no need to take notes unless you want to, and most everything is on the handout anyway. If you have any questions or comments at any point, I welcome them to do that. You can use the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel. That's essentially a one-way typed chat. Your message, your typed message will come to me, and I will check in from time to time. You can type a question or comment in at any time, and I'll make sure we leave some time to catch up as we go, even if I don't get to it right away. All right, let's talk about how dictionaries function in accordance, and then we'll look at 4 different ways to use them. The last one is sort of the most, I think, efficient option when you're searching multiple dictionaries at once, but we'll build our way up to that. I'm not assuming a whole lot of expertise in accordance on the part of anyone attending here. And so we kind of start from a basic level. Even if you've been using accordance for a while, though, I have found that those features that I don't use very often, I tend to forget. So there may be something for you here, even if you're a longtime user that is new, or a little tweak or a task that you forgot was possible. So hopefully everyone finds something helpful. We begin by noting that in accordance, there are texts and tools. You can see this in the library in its organization. Let me open up my library panel here, and I've got a lot of different things here that are showing, but broadly speaking, when you open up your library, which you can do at the toolbar here, and you may know, or maybe you don't, but you can drag this edge to see more or less of your library. This is where we'll open our modules, but you've got recently opened up here, and then you've got texts, and then databases, which we won't talk about today, and then tools. And there's more as you scroll down, but broadly speaking, you can think about texts in accordance, and you can think about tools in accordance. A text, as you can see here, is any primary text, and accordance being called Accordance Bible software. More often than not, your text is going to be some kind of a Bible text. But that's not all that's in accordance. There are things like the Apostolic Fathers. You will have the Dead Sea Scrolls, different canons. So whether it's the Orthodox Bible or the Catholic Bible or the Protestant canon, you'll have lots of different primary sources in here. So Bible or somehow Bible related. So whatever primary source you have in accordance is called a text. And then tools would be secondary sources. So tools are anything that comment on the text. And as you scroll down here past all of my texts, under tools, you'll see dictionaries, which is what we're covering today, commentaries, lexicons, grammars, visuals, devotionals, cross-references, study Bibles, practical, preaching, theological, so basically everything else. And I did mention we have databases, which we're not getting into, but broadly speaking, think in terms of texts and tools in accordance. So text being a primary source, tool being a secondary source. Dictionaries, of course, are tools in accordance. You may think about something like Webster's dictionary as its own primary text, and it is, but in accordance, dictionaries are any tools that comment on a primary text. And again, large majority of these are going to be commenting on the primary text of the Bible. And so the dictionary might be a Bible dictionary specifically. It might be a theology dictionary, still rooted in what you can glean from the Bible. There could be other dictionaries as well, but that's broadly speaking the organization that we want to think of, texts and tools. And then within tools, and I know this is maybe a little bit arcane, but this will help us as we navigate our dictionaries later. Within tools, you can think about how are those tools organized. Now, they're not all organized the same way, and we won't go down through every single one of these tools, but some of them are organized by chapter that the author wrote. So if you've got something like a history book, Fox's Book of Martyrs, that's going to be organized by person. 40 questions on Islam, or 40 questions on historical Jesus, that will be organized by question. There's a lot of different ways you can organize a book, but when you think about something like a commentary, that's going to be a tool that's organized by Bible reference. And so you're going to look up a commentary according to a Bible verse. So just like your Bible has books, chapters, and verses, your commentaries will too. And then now we get finally to dictionaries, organized also by entry. Dictionaries, and again, this, anyone who's used a dictionary will know this, but just to point out that your dictionaries in accordance are going to be organized by entry, alphabetical entry more often than not. So A to Z, alphabetical entry. So we're going to build on everything I just said as we navigate through these dictionaries in different ways, but I wanted to start with that distinction that you've got texts or primary sources in accordance, and then tools or secondary sources. Dictionaries are tools. So if you go in your library, and I've got a lot here, I know I'm going kind of quickly, but if you go to tools, you'll find dictionaries right there. And then within that, all of the different ways that tools can be organized. Your commentaries are organized by reference, chapter, book, and verse. Book, chapter, verse. Dictionaries organized by entry. This will become more relevant when we get to use case number 3, which I'll come back to. But let's talk about now, how do we actually get the most out of a dictionary in accordance? And we're gonna, to demo, we're gonna use the InterVarsity Press Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels, 2nd edition. I've hyperlinked to that there in the handout so that you can click that link and follow it to where it is in the store. There are 2 editions, as the title suggests. I have kept both. You know, the 2nd editions vary widely in what they do, depending on what kind of a book it is, what the publisher wants to do, what the author wants to do. You can see here, if you open this, it will tell you at the beginning what the difference is. But the difference between the 1st and 2nd edition here, for what it's worth, was substantial enough that I wanted to keep the 1st edition in my library. In other words, this 2nd edition updates and revises the 1st edition, but it doesn't so overwrite it that I want to lose the 1st edition. All of that is to say, if you've got the 1st edition, everything we're about to look at will work for you. If you've got a different dictionary altogether, just about everything will work as well. I'm just using this as an example, and because I think it's a really good dictionary. Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. So again, think back to those categories. This is an interesting tool. It is very much commenting on the primary sources, specifically the Gospels. That's not to say there will be no other Bible references in there. There will be copious references, probably to every book in the Bible, I would guess. But it is a tool commenting on the text, the primary text of the Gospels. And even with Bible references that will be in there for every gospel, it is organized by entry. And you can see that here by clicking in this. It's a small icon, but if you hover over it, you'll see that it says show table of contents. So I'm going to close my library now. In accordance, if you don't know what a thing does, hover over it and you'll get what's called a tooltip. Any of these icons. Now, some of them will just, if there's already text there, will repeat it. But some of these other buttons that might look unfamiliar to you, hover over them and it will tell you what it does. Or of course, you can just do what I did when I started using Accordance, which is just click stuff almost at random to see what it does. You can't break the app. You can crash it, if there's a bug there, but of course developers want to eliminate those. So hovering over this, I see show table of contents. So I'm going to do that. And as promised, this is organized by entry, and the entries are organized in alphabetical order. So that helps me understand how to browse it. So in other words, I don't expect to go to Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels and see it in canonical order. It is not, they could have done that. I suppose they call it a commentary in that case, but it could have been book, chapter, and verse, but it's by alphabetical entry. So I'm going to want to think a little bit more topically with the dictionary like this. And so if you click on any of these letters, you can see the entries. And there's a lot here. This is just A. And there are sub-entries too. So if I click on authority and power, I can get at this a couple ways. I can just click on this in the contents sidebar here, and it will take me to that entry. I can also click this triangle. Again, it's very small, but it's an isosceles triangle pointing to the right. And if I click it, notice how it points down. Those are called disclosure triangles, expand, collapse. And now that gives me what the subheadings are under authority and power. Now, as with my library, the edge here, I can drag that over here so I can see everything. So I've got understanding authority and power. Again, I can click on that. Authority and power in the four Gospels. As expected, this is, after all, Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. And I can even click that disclosure triangle, and quite helpfully, I see it organized now by book of the Bible. So there's a nested organization in this particular article. They're not all like this, but this particular article, it's topically construed, authority and power. And then I've got the outline, and then I've got a walk through each of the four Gospels and how they address authority and power after it's been defined here in this dictionary. Now, all of that is just from opening up the dictionary and using the sidebar to browse through the table of contents. And that may be all that you ever need to do in a dictionary. There's much more you can do, but this is pretty similar to what we would do if we were just flipping through it in print. We would just flip through the entries and see what they are, and the headings would stand out with the different typesetting and so on. But we can browse through the content sidebar here. Just to start over, I've gone to library. Of course, it's here in recently opened, but if I type in Gospels, Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels, I can either double click this, or I could select it and hit enter or return, and that will open it. That's how I opened it in the first place, and then I got the content sidebar here. Now, in accordance, resizing is important enough that I will stop and make sure I've got this set up. This is not a great setup for reading. I've got a too narrow sidebar here. I've got my library here. If I'm actually reading this article, I can close my library and expand this sidebar if I want, or I can get to the entry I want and close it. So just think about that as you're reading. You may want to consider how you maximize screen real estate. But that's the browse your way through the dictionary method. I mean, you could really spend an afternoon just seeing what's in here, what looks interesting. Oh, Gethsemane, you know, it was just Holy Week in church tradition. So let me see how that's organized and what it has to say here. So that is, we actually jumped ahead to this one right here, but that's maybe the simplest way, maybe the most intuitive way to use a dictionary on its own. Having found a particular dictionary in the library and opened it, we are browsing to see the entry organization. Remember, it's organized alphabetically by entry in that contents sidebar. And as fun and enjoyable as that is, you may also want to go a little bit quicker and search something. You may know what you're looking for. Let's say I'm looking for salvation. Well, I can go right there like this in the content sidebar. I could also search the titles in the content sidebar, but there's probably, I think, what I'd consider a more efficient way to get at this. That is in the search entry area right here, the search bar, the search box, I should say. So I'm searching the dictionary that I've opened from the library, which is Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. And it says there, I've got a flashing cursor, enter a word or phrase, and I will momentarily type in the word salvation. But before I do that, I want to look at this search token right here, which is basically you answering the question, what kind of content do you want to search here? Now, this is where Accordance sets itself apart from like an e-reader, or if you were to open up, if you were to purchase a PDF of this, I don't know if that's even available, but if you had a PDF of a document and you did Command F or Control F on Windows to search something, you would find all the uses of that word, and you can still do that in accordance with this all English search. That searches everything, just like Command F or Control F would. But you can also narrow your search to something more specific. We'll see here that you can search by scripture. We'll come back to that. You can search by authors, captions, Greek and Hebrew even. If you're wondering, for example, is agape in here or something like it, I start typing, it converted I'm typing on my English, my US keyboard, AG, it converted it to Greek, gave me quick entry, and there's agapao. It's not super useful, it's just part of the bibliography, but that's there. If you have a dictionary with lots of Greek, it will show up. So you might take some time just to look through these, but titles is the one that I want to use for searching a particular entry. And so this is still under use case number one. We're just using the dictionary on its own as a standalone module, and I'm going to use the different search fields. And so here is the search field of titles and some of the other ones. So titles essentially is in accordance anything that's in bold and is a heading. So it will be entries plus sub entries. And just to prove that, I'm going to type salvation. And notice again, as with when I did the Greek search, as I start typing S-A-L-V, Accordance has this quick entry feature where it will suggest possible words that I could be looking for. The nice thing about this is it's not every word in the English language that begins with S-A-L-V, but it's words that are actually in this dictionary, in this search field. So these are searches that will come up with positive results. It's not like if you go to a search engine and type in, why is the sky, you know, it's probably going to auto complete and suggest blue, but there might be 5 other things. But these are words that only exist in the module, in the search entry field that you're selecting. So all that's to say, I can auto complete with salvation, hit enter, and now it takes me right to the entry, which is great, and that's what I want. And you can go back now to the sidebar, which will automatically open to that part of the contents. So if I want to navigate here, I can, but I can also just scroll through. And this is a pretty simple organization. Again, we're still alphabetically organized. So I went to salvation. I have a 2-paragraph summary of it. And then it goes back to Mark, Matthew, Luke, John. And as I scroll through this, so many hyperlinked references. As I scroll through this, notice that my on the content sidebar, there's a little highlight there showing where I am. So I'm just scrolling in the main window, and it advances to Matthew to help me keep track. If I want to jump back up, I can go back up that way to salvation. Now I search salvation for exact hits. What else is there? Well, let's advance by hit, up or down. And here is salvation as a title in another entry. I don't know what that entry is, but if I click where it's highlighted here, I can see it's in John, Gospel of, and it's under Johannine Theology. Go up again, recipients of salvation. Now again, that's not the entry salvation. That's maybe not what I'm looking for, but accordance in this particular dictionary has the entries together with other subheadings under titles. Some dictionaries just have entries, but this one has every title. And I think that's as it should be. I can navigate the multiple hits to get what I want, but accordance wants me to see both the entry, but also where else it's a title. So recipients of salvation, that certainly is germane to a study I might be doing on salvation. So that's under the article for Gentiles. And then here's another one. Let's see what that is. Birth of Jesus. Luke's birth narrative, anticipating themes in the remainder of the gospel and their salvation. So this was not under the entry of salvation, but I am glad it surfaced because that will be relevant to my search. And given that this is a multi-contributor dictionary, this may be a different author than my other article. In fact, you can see here, it will give you the author for the article at hand. So this is S. Young. If I navigate down by hit, here's K.R. Iverson. If I navigate again, here's Craig Keener, and here are so two different authors here. So that will also show right here in this little heading. So there's lots of little bells and whistles here that I think are easy to miss, but Accordance wants to make this as easy for you as possible. If it's your first time opening a dictionary in Accordance, it can be a lot to take in and remember. And I guess in that case, I would just say, if it's helpful to go back and watch the recording and slow it down on this webinar and try this on your own. But the more you use dictionaries, the more this will become second nature, and you'll see the little things like this. I find this particularly useful because, yes, I know this is a good resource. It's a resource I trust. That may be enough for me in citing this, but even so, I do want to know who's writing this particular article. And Accordance will, of course, you could scroll to the end of the article and see it. It will be at the bottom, but Accordance also puts that information right here in this little, I'm not even sure what this area is called here, but this little header area, so that you get more information. So that's the search field, which, you've got 4 hits here. Now, maybe you read all that and you want more. Well, you can go to English content, which will give you every time the word salvation occurs not in a title. And that's 355 hits. So we're going to have a lot there. Or you could just do all of the above and do all English, and that will give you salvation where it occurs in a title, in the body of the text, probably under captions, bibliography, some other things. So that's the search token, different ways to search things. But more often than not, I'm beginning with titles because I'm going to a dictionary with a topic in mind, and I want to see what it has to say about that topic. An example, and I put this in the handout here, is the word criticism. And not criticism like you're criticizing someone or someone's criticizing you, but criticism as a study, a discipline, a particular way of reading and interpreting the text, a particular lens. If I search criticism in this title, I've got 29 exact hits. And this is a helpful search that I've done before. I mean, apart from this webinar, what kinds of criticism or methodologies are listed here that people use to read the Gospels? Well, there's form criticism, and that's defined here, and even the history of it, review and evaluation of it. I navigate down, those are the subheadings, but we've got Latino/Latina criticism and what that means. Literary criticism, which takes me to narrative criticism. What is that? How has it been used? And I've got a lot of hits here. Form criticism, post-colonial criticism, redaction criticism, all of these are here. Now, if you knew that you were looking for literary criticism, you could just put that in the title and go right there, save yourself some time. But it may be that you're embarking on a study of the Gospels and you're wondering, what are the different interpretive lenses through which folks have interpreted the Gospels, and not just lenses, but approaches. You know, what are they prioritizing as they study it? Is it the history of it? Is it the narratival shape of it? Is it the genre? Different criticisms will speak to that. So that's the search field, and again, I start with titles, or it might be called entries in another dictionary, but that's typically where I start, although I would recommend working your way through the different search fields. They can vary from dictionary to dictionary. Let me share just one other thing, and then I'll stop and see what questions or comments you have. I note this here in the handout, but we're still talking about using a dictionary on its own. I've got nothing else open in accordance but this dictionary. The front matter will give you details about what kind of dictionary is this, what is the aim, who are the contributors, what are their backgrounds, and usually you can expect, or you should expect, in my opinion, some statement about what are the theological and methodological commitments of the contributors. And that's just to acknowledge that everybody has them. So it's not like we can divest ourselves of them, or then maybe that's not even the goal. Maybe it is the goal to do it somewhat, but either way, you can expect just about any dictionary to acknowledge what this is. You know, we're coming at this from a broadly evangelical approach, or they might say we're coming at it from a homiletical approach. We're interested in defining these terms, but particularly with an eye toward preaching. You'll usually get that in the front matter under the preface. And there's a lot sometimes in the preface, sometimes it's pretty brief. But you can see here, for example, it's talking about evangelical study, New Testament scholarship informed by classical Christian faith. Now, of course, those words need to be defined and they can be contested, but generally speaking, you get a sense of what they say they're about. In fact, they do it very explicitly right here. To be evangelical and critical at the same time has been the object of the dictionary. And now you might ask, well, what do they mean by evangelical? What do they mean by critical? Well, as it turns out, you're in a dictionary already, so you could look and see if they define it further. If it's not in the titles, search by content. If you're trying to decide if you want a dictionary, and if part of your calculus for adding it to your library is the stuff that's in the front matter and you don't own it, typically the product page will show you something along those lines. Let me just see what's here. I'm going to go to File, New tab, Web Browser. You'll typically get something like that. Here's the first edition, second edition. Yeah, you'll get a decent sense even from the product page. And if you don't, you know, there's various ways online to look inside Google Books or whatever, maybe some kind of library preview. You can also always go to the Accordance forums, which is forums.accordancebible.com, and you can ask there. I'm just going to put this in the search, or I'm sorry, in the chat, since I don't know that I linked to that. And in the forums, you can always, you know, just go to dictionary. I mean, you can just see what's already here. And you could ask a question if it hasn't already been asked, but you could ask a question along the lines of, hey, I'm looking at this particular dictionary, you know, are you able to speak to what the commitments are or who the contributors are? And that's essentially crowdsourcing your question. You'll probably get an answer pretty quickly from some users. So I'll stop there. That's all the first use case. The other ones won't be as won't take as long, but that's using a dictionary on its own. And whether that's how you use your dictionaries in your day-to-day research or not, it may be how most of us use a dictionary once we get it in our library. If I have just purchased or had added to my library this dictionary, I'm going to want to just open it by itself and just see it. And personally, I browse through the content sidebar because I just want to browse. You know, it's like you go into a bookstore, you're just browsing it first. But then before long, I am going to have some targeted searches. So I will move over to that search field, thinking through the different search fields in the search entry area to use. But let me stop there and check in with you and see what questions you might have or comments on using a dictionary on its own. If there was anything I didn't cover or that you want me to go over again, type that into the questions box, and I'll either respond publicly, anonymizing your comment, but sharing it with everyone, or I'll respond privately by typing back to you. And of course, you can keep the questions coming at any time. Otherwise, we'll just pause for a moment and then move on to a second way, which is pretty efficient, pretty clever, I think, to access dictionaries. All right, let's talk about amplify. Now, I've never heard this word in any other app than Accordance. Accordance has this feature, and this goes way back, some of the early versions, but if not the first, I don't know. But to amplify in Accordance, it's just Accordance's technical term for looking up something in something else. And remember, we talked about that distinction between primary tools or texts, rather primary sources and text, and secondary sources, which is tools. You can think about amplifying as looking up something from a text in a tool. So here's a Bible text. I'm in John 3, and let's just go with the word Jesus. Now, we talked about dictionaries being organized by alphabetical entry. So that's great. And I could go to this dictionary of Jesus in the Gospels and type in the word Jesus. I'm going to get 290 hits even in the title. So maybe let's find a different, let's use the word Christ and see what that does. So we know that I could type this in and look under titles and get right to my entry, but I may not be coming to my dictionary from my dictionary. I may be coming to my dictionary from my text. I may be reading John 3:27, for example. John replied, "No one can receive anything unless it has been given to him from heaven. You yourselves," him or her, he means, "you yourselves can testify that I said, I am not the Christ, but rather I have been sent before him." Well, that's a pretty important word as John uses it. I've got a footnote in my NET Bible, but suppose I want to look it up in my dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. Now, we know I can search it as we did in the first use, but let's do something more integrated, and that's where Amplify comes in. I can search for the word Christ, so from my text, I can search that word in a given tool. And there's the Amplify icon up here in my toolbar. And you'll just want to make sure that your toolbar, if your workspace looks like this, go to Window and Show Toolbar. So select the word. I'm going to double click on Christ, and now go to Amplify. This is the long way, and then I'm going to show you the short way. But the long way is Amplify, and now I've got limitless options. In fact, I can amplify from a text to a text. So I could look up the word Christ in another Bible if I wanted to. So I've just searched Christ in the NIV. I could look up the word Christ in any dictionary, in any commentary, in anything really. But let's go to dictionaries because that's where we are. And somewhere in here is going to be my dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. I need to reorganize my library. I have made a little folder here, so it's up here. And it does the same thing that I could have done manually, which is set the search field to titles, type in Christ, but it does it automatically. Now that's handy enough, but you can do that even more quickly. So that first way that I've shown is toolbar amplify. So you select a particular word, go to amplify, and then find the text or tool that you want. So we're going to stay with Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. Click it, and then it looks it up. In fact, it will even bring your scripture reference with you as part of the search if you tell it to. So that's good. That's still a couple of clicks. Well, there's a quicker way to do that. If I go back to Christ here, I've got my library still open. I could close it just for the sake of reading, but if it's still open, notice when I hover over this module in my library, there's that same amplify icon. It's a four direction arrow, and hovering over it, hovering over the module makes it show up. So that means you can amplify this word Christ into this tool. And if you weren't sure about that, hover over that icon as we talked about, and it says search Dictionary of Jesus and Gospels for the selection. What is the selection? Well, it's this word Christ that I double clicked to select. So now I go here and I can amplify straight from this module that I already had open, rather than having to go in here and find, okay, where are the dictionaries? All right, where is it, my dictionaries? That's fine, but I can just go like that, much quicker. And in fact, you could do that not just from recently opened, but you can do that from any of your dictionaries. So let's look at it in the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary. Let's look at Christ in Dictionary of Biblical Imagery. I've still got it selected in the text. Now I'm just hitting amplify. And if it's got an entry, it will show up. And it may not have an entry in some of these. Actually, I wonder if I need to close this. Yeah, I may need to close that other one to get it to go. So that's another way to do it. That is in the handout, that is library module amplify. So you pick your word, select it, go to whatever module you want, and there it is in the entry field or the title field. That's library module amplified. There's a third yet quicker way to do this, to amplify, and that is to make a toolbar icon shortcut. So suppose you don't want your library open, and suppose you're consistently clicking into the Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. In this toolbar, you can make a shortcut. You can see here I have BDAG, the Greek English Lexicon, so that I can amplify. I can select a Greek word and just click this and get into it. I'm going to disappear this. So I'm going to go into Customize Toolbar, and on Mac, you notice this is kind of wiggling. I'm going to move it out of there so you can see. All right, so I don't have it in my toolbar now, but any resource that you want up here, and you can customize this whole toolbar, by the way. Maybe you never ever use the, I don't know, the analytics or whatever it is. Maybe you don't need the preferences shortcut here. You can pull any of these out and resize it. But I'm going to go to right click, customize toolbar, and I'm going to, it says drag your favorite items into the toolbar. So what I'm going to do now is take the Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. Actually, let me try this again. What I want to do is drag it up into, here it is. I'm sorry, it's not, so you drag and drop with customizing, but for this part, you just right click and save to toolbar. So easy peasy. Right click, customize, and I don't think you can unsave from here. Yeah, so I pulled it out here just to show how to add it. But here's this resource that I want. Right click, save to toolbar. Now it's there. You cannot rename, unless someone knows a workaround that I'm not aware of, you can't rename it. So unfortunately, you do get this kind of long truncated version here, but you can also get rid of the icon or get rid of the text, however you want to do that. But here it is, Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. So even with the text missing, I can hover over it and see. And now the same thing I did with this amplify button and with this amplify button, I can do here from the toolbar. So I'm going to close my library, and this is good for saving steps, preserving screen real estate. And I'm going to go back to the word Christ, and now it's just a single click on that dictionary, and it looked it up in the titles search field in the Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. So that's amplifying. 3 different ways to amplify from a text to a dictionary. Number 1 is that longer toolbar amplify, where you can amplify to anything. In other words, search this word that you've selected or phrase in any of these. That's number 1. Number 2 is do the same thing, but just use the little shortcut here in the library. And then number 3 is you could put the shortcut to the module here in the toolbar itself to save you some time. And you could do more than this. I mean, you could put your favorite 3 dictionaries right here and get rid of any of this other stuff that you wanted to. All of that would happen via customize toolbar. And this can be worth some time if you're doing certain tasks a lot and not doing certain other tasks. Like if you never knew this character palette existed and have never used it, you could either learn how to use it or, you know, just be realistic and take it out of the toolbar. Maybe you don't need it taking up space. Maybe instead you want to put a favorite resource up there. So that's amplifying from text to dictionary via toolbar. Let's pause there and see if you've got comments or questions on anything that we talked about with Amplify. And then we'll move on to my tool set, which is essentially, well, it's not a workaround because it's a supported feature in Accordance, but it's essentially a way to take your entry organized dictionaries and match them up as if it were organized by Bible reference. This is why I made that distinction before, because this My Toolset tool essentially conflates it in a way that you can still look up by entry, but it will kind of turn your dictionary into a running commentary that goes verse by verse with you, which is another great way to access it. But before we do that, what comments or questions do you have on amplifying? All right, let's talk about my tool set. It was, I don't remember if it was version 10 or 11, I think it might have been 11, but when this feature was introduced, it was pretty exciting because, again, you can access this how it's organized, but you know, a dictionary and a commentary are 2 different things. Like I say, this My Toolset basically conflates them so that you can use it even more flexibly. Now, if I'm in this part of John, I can still search my dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels by scripture. So I could type in John 3:28 and I get some hits. And that's great, and I can do that, but this My Toolset is under the info pane and it saves some time. So go to Add Parallel, Info pane. If you want to see more about the info pane, by the way, you can go to your help menu, go to webinars, and I think every quarter or so we offer, I teach an info pane session, a full hour on it. So you can find pre-recorded ones there from before. But among the info pane categories, there is this, My Toolset. And that is your set of tools that you want showing up right here. These things like grammars, commentaries, study Bibles, they're pre-populated. So when you have a commentary and it covers John 3:27 or John 3:28, and you're in that verse, it will surface that commentary. But it's organized by commentaries. With My Toolset, you can really put whatever you want to in there. I mean, you can add all kinds of stuff. So you could even make this my top 5 resources that span across grammars, commentaries, study Bibles. So there's lots of ways you can use it. But I just want to focus on one way you can use it, and that is to put dictionaries in there, which again is kind of collapsing the distance between a tool that is organized by canonical Bible reference, so book, chapter, verse, and a tool that is organized by alphabetical entry. So let me show you what I mean. Here's My Toolset. Go to the gear icon, and it's going to show you what you already have there. I'm going to delete everything so that I have nothing there, and you have to update. All right, I've got nothing in my tool set. Maybe yours looks like this. Maybe you have some things, but go to the gear icon, and now I get a little dialog screen and add tool. What tool do you want to add? And notice that I can only add a tool in this case. So any secondary source. And this category schema, if this looks familiar to you, it's because my library is organized this way. All right, well, I can add anything I want that's listed here, but I'm just going to go to dictionaries for now. and I'm going to go to Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. That NT up there, that's my own folder. Unless you made that, yours will just be in your regular list. So I'm going to add Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels, 2nd edition. Now I have to click update so it populates, and it's there. Let me add one more just so we can see it again, but also so we can get another dictionary in there. Add tool, dictionary. Let's add the Global Dictionary of Theology. Remember to hit update. And we'll just add yet one more. Dictionaries. Let's add the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary. Update. All right. Now I'm in John 3:28. 2 of my 3 dictionaries are showing here. That doesn't mean I did it incorrectly. It just means that 2 of my dictionaries out of 3 have John 3:28 listed in them. I bet by navigating I could find one that has more than there. Okay, here's one that has 3. So let's use this. So John 3:34, for the one whom God has sent speaks the words of God, for he does not give the Spirit sparingly. All right, so here's info for John 3:34, and maybe I look at my grammars, commentaries, study Bibles, but my tool set now gives me shortcuts to these 3 dictionaries. Now, by themselves, I'm just seeing images right here. So the question is, how do I use them? And there's multiple ways to do this. We go into this more in the webinar on the info pane, but probably the most useful way is if I click on this cover image, Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. I'm going to click it. And what it did was it searched, remember the search field, it found the search field for scripture, selected it, and typed in my reference, John 3:34. And it did that in a specific way. It did it with an equal sign, which in accordance, if you just do John 3:34 with no equal sign, notice this 4 is going to jump up to 21. And that's because it's going to give me, like, here's John 3:32 through 35. Is that relevant to my search if I'm looking up John 3:34? Yeah, absolutely. But it's just in a range. The equal sign gives it that verse where it's mentioned by itself. And that's partly just because of how the info pane works. The info pane gives you info for a verse at a time. So by default, when you click on your dictionary or whatever's in your tool set, it's going to add that equal sign there. And that does give you a more targeted search. So now I've got 4 hits in my Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels with John 3:34, and I can navigate using the up and down arrows. Now I have no idea what article this is. I know who the author is. So I'm probably going to want to use what I learned before, show the table of contents. So that's under the word Logos. Go up by hit. Let's see what that reference is. Well, it's under Gospel of John, Johannine Theology, and you can do all the same things we did before. Maybe you resize the info pane even and navigate by hit. Now, if you want to see more than just John 3:34 by itself, but also when it's part of a range, you can just delete that equal sign. But click now on Anchor, same thing, equals John 3:34, set the search field to scripture. It did that automatically, and same with Global Dictionary of Theology. So I've got 2 hits there, 4 hits there, and 4 hits there. So I've got some stuff now in my dictionaries that I can work through. But what this tool set has done, and I can still open these I can still navigate by entry, but what this tool set has done has basically distilled a few steps down to a single click. It is looking up in my dictionaries any uses of the reference of the verse that I'm in. So now you're going from, this is similar to Amplify, but instead of a word, it's a verse. Now your dictionaries are kind of pulling double duty as commentaries. I mean, they're not commentaries in the traditional sense. This John 3:34 is part of a reference, and so it's not a full commentary, but it's letting you pull out even more from your dictionaries. If it's got something on that verse, it's going to show up here, and then you just click it open to see the different results, and then just advance by hit. So as you scroll through whatever you're reading, your tool set will continue to populate or not, depending on if there's a reference in there. So here, for example, there's nothing. So there's nothing for John 4:4, but as I proceed, John 4:5 has something for Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels, and so does Anchor Yale. That's my tool set. And it's pretty simple to set up. And once you have it set up, those dictionaries are always there. You don't have to go back and set it up every time. If I add my parallel info pane, they're there. So this is one of those features, I think, in Accordance that is worth it at some point. I mean, often we use Accordance, we've got a particular task to do, and maybe we don't want to spend a lot of time on the settings, but this is one that it's worth spending at least a couple minutes on. Like, are there some particular tools that you want to add, and maybe just load it up. You don't have to update it every single one you add. Maybe you just add, maybe you find 5 or 6 different ones that you want to add, and then you've got them, and then you update them, and then those will populate as you scroll through your biblical text. So that puts your dictionaries in kind of commentary order, in book, chapter, verse order, even while you could still open them up elsewhere and access them by entry at the same time. Comments, questions are welcome. I'm going to move on to a fourth use case. So we've talked first about using a dictionary on its own. We've talked about amplifying into a dictionary. We've talked about being in a Bible passage and accessing different dictionaries from my tool set. And then fourth is you can look up a word or a concept or a reference in all of your dictionaries all at once. This is the research feature, which we have a webinar for as well. I spent a whole hour on that. So we're getting the 2-minute version now, but if you want more, it's on that webinars page. But if I go to File, New tab, I can open up a research window, and it looks like this, nice and empty. And I can search, let's go to entry, Christ. Now the search fields here are a little different. I'm not searching by entry or whatever. This is a little simpler. English, Greek, Hebrew, Syriac versus Imagery Unicode. Well, that's easy. I'm searching an English word. The decision now to make is, what do you want to search the word Christ in? So here's all the options. Here's all texts, and we know that's primary sources. Here's all tools. We know that's secondary sources. And that's going to be all of this stuff. But let's get something more specific. Let's just search the word Christ in all of my dictionaries. And what this will do is save me the time of opening every dictionary manually, toggling the search field to entry or title, and typing in or pasting in Christ and running it. It does it all at once. And again, I can expand this edge to see what I've got here. So here's Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. Here's Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary. Here's Bible Themes Dictionary, Biblical Imagery. In any of these, if you double click them, you can open them in a new tab, or you can just scroll through your results here, the text of your results, while you look at the list of the results here. Now, this is a lot of information in one window. The question is, what do I want to open and study more? So maybe Dictionary of Paul and Letters, that looks good. So I can also click open from here and just open as many of these as look helpful to me, and then read through them. But this has saved a lot of time, and this used to be called Search All several versions ago, but Accordance introduced this so that you didn't have to look it up in any individual dictionary. Now, this is a huge improvement over something like an e-reader, where I guess it depends on the app, but generally speaking, you're searching one ebook at a time, not across your entire library. But in this case, you are searching across your entire library, just your dictionaries. And if you want to do more, you can do all tools. But again, that's under File, New tab, and you'll find Research in that menu. You'll also notice that there's a research shortcut up here in the toolbar. And you'll just want to make sure, if that's not showing there, you'll want to make sure that when you customize it, find the research search right here, drag it up into your toolbar. So I could type in the word Christ here, or whatever it is I'm searching. And in that case, you get kind of a truncated version of that big window we looked at before. So English, check. All tools, okay, well that's fine, but no, I want to do dictionaries. So check that. Now it will research the word Christ in dictionaries. And I got the same thing I just did when I opened this on its own. So I've got that right there in the toolbar to save some time. I don't have to remember it's under File, New Tab, Research. I can just open it that way. Again, we've got a whole hour in our webinars and our recordings on the research function. There's a lot more you can do with that, but that's another way to access your dictionaries, not just the ones that you think of to look at, but the ones that maybe you forgot were even in your library, like, oh, I didn't even think about hymn lyrics as a dictionary, and you know, maybe that's not what you're looking for, but that showed up and maybe that's helpful. In our last few minutes, maybe think of this more as for further reading. I've just highlighted a couple dictionaries. We've been in the IVP Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. I would think in terms of getting some good general dictionaries that cover a lot of territory, like the IVP New Bible Dictionary is one. Let me see if I can, New Bible Dictionary. There it is. So this is a pretty general dictionary in terms of approach and scope. So I would think about having something like that. There's the Global Dictionary of Theology. I mentioned that before. I use this pretty regularly when I'm in dictionaries. And this gives you, again, in the preface, what it's about, what the approach is. A general overview of theological reflection and practice throughout the world. And it notes here, again, I think the best of these dictionaries will just own their theological and methodological commitments. You know, you can agree or not, but I think even worse is if you don't know what it is. Well, they tell you, while working in a framework that we have called evangelical and ecumenical, we did not intend in our choice of subjects and authors to suggest either a singular methodology or particular theological slant. Our hope was that the articles would reflect a rich diversity of contexts and a variety of styles and perspectives. And so that you could find that in any dictionary. And then this one talks about what does it mean to be a global dictionary of theology. And you're going to get a broader perspective is the goal of this dictionary. So that's one that I recommend, although all that said, you're still going to find, you know, pretty broad base of typical, you know, terms in biblical theology. You're going to find them here as well. And then you might think in terms of a specialized dictionary. A good example of a pretty highly specialized dictionary is the Dictionary of the New Testament use of the Old Testament. This is pretty new. And it's, if you look at the cover here, it's really connected to, there's a New Testament use of the Old Testament commentary. Well, this one's a dictionary. So when you study intertextual, whether you call them allusions or echoes or whatever, there are certain terms that come up, like allusions. And this, in certain themes, so like Antichrist, for example, does that only occur in like Revelation or Thessalonians? Well, in fact, there's a whole biblical tracing here, and not just where it occurs throughout the Bible, but how the New Testament uses the Old Testament on a particular term. So this is a pretty specialized dictionary, but if you are doing a lot of work in a New Testament book that keeps quoting the Old Testament, this would be a really good one to reach for. And remember that you can add this to your tool set too, so that it shows up verse by verse as you go. There are many more dictionaries we could have considered today. I used Jesus and the Gospels as a base. I suggested a few more, but you'd probably do well. Just search your own library for dictionary, or go find the heading. And then you can also, if you go to the Accordance store, you can just search right here, just in the search bar for dictionary, and you'll see the different options that there are. This Jesus and the Gospels is part of this Bible dictionary series, but you've got a compact dictionary, Greek dictionary, dictionary of Bible themes, Jewish Publication Society, dictionary of Jewish words. I've found that to be very useful. Holman Illustrated Bible Dictionary, so that's going to have illustrations, lots of different things here. And again, I would start even before you go to the store, just see what's in your library. You might, especially if you've been using Accordance for a while, you might have forgotten that you had a certain thing. So that can be worth checking out. But I will stop there, and we'll wrap up. We'll take just a minute or so to wrap up. If you've got any other questions or comments, I would welcome them. We are going to, if you're here live, as I said, you'll get an email sometime today, tomorrow, probably at the latest, with a link to this recording, as well as the handout. And if you are watching on a recording, you can email me at abramkj@accordancebible.com to receive the handout.